Hi guys, I am hoping that after you watch this you will have a better understanding of how to write an introduction and a conclusion to your multi-paragraph essay. It's actually pretty easy to do. There's a formula that you can use that will, at least as you're getting started writing these, will give you a little bit to go on. So when you start an introduction, you have to get your reader's attention, because if you don't, of course, they won't want to read it because it'll be boring. So in the next couple of slides, we're going to show you some ways that you can introduce your reader to a topic while getting their attention. But before I do that, I want to show you another graphic, less fancy than this one, that kind of gives you a general sense of what your intro paragraph will look like. So when you see this at the beginning, you're going to want to grab your reader's attention up here. And then you're going to use transition to get to your thesis statement. You all have written your thesis statement, so that part's going to be easy for you. The thing that usually gets kids into trouble is this one, because they get confused about how to do it. And the best way to describe it that I know is to compare it to your commentary, because the transition to the thesis statement is really just commentary that you guys already know how to do. And so I want to give you a chance to look at a couple of slides that can give you some different techniques in grabbing your reader's attention. The first way is to use a quotation to get your reader's attention. And this is something that you are pretty familiar with. You probably know the book better than just about anybody, at least Secret Life of Bees. So what you do is you're going to find a quote that you feel would be helpful for you and your thesis statement. In this case, the thesis statement, of course, is in green, and the attention grabber is up here in red. In Touching Spirit Bear, Edwin explains the purpose of dancing to Cole when he says, all around us there are powers. There are animals like the whale, the bear, the wolf, and the eagle. We can feel all of these and dance to them. Now, skip the blue section for a minute. Read directly to the thesis statement. From his dances, Cole learns ingenuity from the beaver, cooperation from the wolf, and power from the whales. So really what's going on is this is connecting here. We'll talk about, just for a minute, about the blue, the transition to the thesis statement, which again is just like commentary. So after the quote, this writer says, Edwin is trying to teach Cole that he can become a better person by learning from the animals through the dances. At first, Cole doesn't believe him. However, eventually he does. So that's an example of using a quote. Next, we're going to talk about using a question as your attention getter. Here's the question in red. What do animals have to teach people? And then we go straight down to the thesis statement, and we've got the same thesis statement as before. And it does connect to the thesis statement. The one thing I will caution you on, and your teachers will always caution you on this, using a question sometimes is boring. And I like to tell people that you use a question as a last resort. If you really just can't think of anything else to do, you can use a question. The next way you can grab your reader's attention is by showing them or writing an interesting fact or a statistic like this one. According to the book Teens in Prison, more than 100,000 teenagers could be in prison at any time. That would be something that might make your reader say, wow, that's interesting. Then if we go down to the bottom, if we go down to the bottom, what you will see is the same exact thesis statement. Let me read the buffer to you, though, this time. The main character of Touching Spirit Bear, Cole Matthews, could have been one of them, one of the teenagers in prison, of course. Instead, he was allowed to learn about his mistakes in non-traditional ways, such as dancing around a fire. So that really gets us from our attention grabber to our thesis statement. Otherwise, without this blue one, especially in this example, without the blue, the intro would sound incredibly weird. The blue part, or the buffer, transition, commentary, whatever you want to call this right here, is definitely, it smooths out this introduction to make it one that's really easy to read and actually pretty interesting. I like this one a lot. The last technique is called an anecdote. You know what that word is from our vocabulary. But you're making up a little story, a very brief story that helps, it reflects what you might be talking about in your thesis statement. So here's the one that we have right here. On a Friday night in Hopkins, Minnesota, Marissa is dancing to Justin Bieber's latest single with her two best friends. They are alone in her room, laughing hysterically. For them, dancing is just fun. Now you know where we're going with this, right? We're going to be going down to the thesis statement that talks about dancing, but a very, very different kind. So here's what happens in the transition or the buffer sentences or the commentary. Meanwhile, in the book Touching Spirit Bear, Cole dances alone. When he's with his friends, Edwin and Garvey, he's too embarrassed to participate. But when he's alone, the dance becomes a lesson in which he fully participates. So again, the blue is really, it's crucial in making this introduction smoothly move from the attention grabber down to the thesis statement. All right, now for the conclusions, you will be super surprised because there's only actually this one slide to talk to you about conclusions. And really what you're going to be doing is you are just going to turn your introduction upside down. And not, again, well, you're not going to say the exact same words, but I want to show you what this kind of looks like. Up top here is the introduction that we just read in the previous slide. So if you look down below, this is a conclusion for that same introduction. So in the end, from his dances, Cole learns ingenuity from the beaver, cooperation from the wolf, and power from the whale. The thesis statement is up top here. But what everyone else lives in the real world, in a place like Hopkins, Minnesota, we don't have Cole's animal role models to learn from. Instead, we have the book Touching Spirit Bear. And then what you're leaving your readers with is something else, another anecdote in this case. While Marissa won't dance animal dances around a fire, she can read about Cole's experiences and learn from them, perhaps reflecting on the differences between Cole's dancing and hers. A couple of things you should remember about conclusions is the main one thing you need to remember is however you introduce the paper, you're going to want to conclude in a similar way. If you ask a question in the intro, you might want to make the answer follow in the conclusion. If you begin with a statistic, you will probably want to end in a similar manner with another statistic, or at least addressing that statistic. All right? It's all a matter of making it feel balanced so the beginning and the end look similar.